Jrue Holiday is one of the most sought after combo guards in this season's trade deadline and trade season. I mean, what's not to like about him? He's a perfect fit for nearly every team with his shot creating ability, his scoring ability, his passing ability, and most importantly, his perimeter defense. It's been recently announced that the New Orleans Pelicans have made Holiday available for trade, and I could see why, because he doesn't really fit in the grand scheme of their whole young rebuild and their young revamp. Holiday is currently 29 years old and in the thick of his prime, which makes him a prime trade candidate. He's still signed for 2 more years, including this year, and he also has a player option for the 2021-22 season. And because of all these factors, Holiday's trade value has never been higher. I mean, there are some contending teams and there are some not so contending teams looking for his services, and I can see why the Pelicans are asking for a very high asking price when it comes to Holiday. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some potential trades that could go down for Jrue Holiday and how they would benefit both teams in certain aspects. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's hop into the first team who I think would benefit a lot from Jrue Holiday's services, and that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. In this trade, the Timberwolves would give up the young Jarrett Culver, Gorgui Dieng, and a top 10 protected pick for Jrue Holiday. How would this benefit the Timberwolves? Well, they would finally get that third star that they much needed aside from Towns and maybe Wiggins if you consider him a star, and they will get a much better point guard than Jarrett Culver for now, and Jeff Teague. Jrue Holiday's elite defense would especially help the Timberwolves considering they're only 21st in the league when it comes to defense with a 111 defensive rating. Holiday would also serve as the team's primary facilitator, and it seems like the Timberwolves very much need his 6.8 assists per game, given that they're only averaging 22.7 per game, which is good for only 23rd in the league. With Holiday, the Timberwolves would boast a starting lineup of Jrue, Andrew Wiggins, Josh Okogie, Robert Covington, and Karl Anthony Towns, an extremely solid starting lineup that could definitely make the push for the playoffs given that the Timberwolves are only 10-18 currently. And how would this benefit the New Orleans Pelicans? Well, by getting Jarrett Culver, this would definitely facilitate the youth movement. Culver has excellent potential given that he's a 6'7 combo guard and wing player, and he boasts a 6'10 wingspan, which gives him positional versatility, and he can play the guard, the forwards, and potentially if he gets his weight up, he can maybe play the power forward position in the future. Although Culver is still extremely raw, only shooting 36.6% from the field and 24% from the 3-point line, it's clear that he has a lot of potential. I mean, there are flashes in games where he can easily drive to the basket and finish around a much taller defender, using his length to his advantage. But in other times, he gets knocked off balance and he's forced to take a tough off-balance jumper and off-balance running floater type shot. And speaking of his 3-pointers, those really need work as well because he has a certain hitch to his jump shot at times that really messes up his rhythm. However, if he's able to fix these things, and I definitely think he will be, he'll be a very solid starter and potentially an all-star in the future. I mean, he has positional versatility, he has above average playmaking, he's a solid defender and driver, and he has the physical tools to be great. So why wouldn't the Pelicans take this deal? And on top of this, they also get a potential pick for this year's draft as well, which has a pretty deep draft class. Next up on the list, we have a team that is also struggling to make it to the playoffs, and it's the Portland Trail Blazers. After a great campaign last season where the Blazers finished 3rd in the Western Conference, this season has been quite a different story. The Blazers haven't been able to quite replicate their success from last year, given that they lost key pieces such as Al-Farouq Aminu and Jusuf Nurkic due to injury. They're currently 8th in the standings with a 14-16 record. And we all love the combination of CJ and Dame, right? I mean, they're both great shot creators, great scorers, great snipers from the 3-point line, but what if I told you that the Blazers could actually trade CJ McCollum straight up for Jrue Holiday? How would the Blazers benefit? Well, currently, much like the Minnesota Timberwolves we talked about last time, the Blazers are in the bottom half in the league in terms of defense with a 110.3 defensive rating, currently good for 18th in the league. If you were to swap Jrue and CJ, Jrue would give the Blazers much needed defense on the perimeter, given that both Dame and CJ aren't exactly known for their defense. I mean, There's a reason they're known for their offense and not their defense. They're not exactly the best defenders in the league. Jrue would serve as more of a Klay Thompson type of role, except with a lot less 3-point shooting than Klay, and in fact a lot less 3-point shooting than CJ. But what I'm trying to say is that Holiday would save Lillard a lot of energy on the defensive end because Holiday would instead pick up the other team's best perimeter player. For Lillard, he would have a lot more energy to do what he does best, which is produce on the offensive end, whether it be playmaking for his teammates, hitting deep threes, or driving to the rack and getting to the free throw line. And look, I know you might be saying that McCollum gives more spacing and McCollum's a much more skilled player offensively, and that's true, but I think Jrue more than makes up for it on the defensive end, and it's not like Jrue is a slouch on offense either. He can definitely create his own shot when he needs to, and he's a very good penetrator. I also think that he's a much better playmaker, and if you tag that along with Dame, who is a decent playmaker himself, it would be a lot easier for teammates to get open buckets as well. If the trade were to go down, the Blazers would have a starting lineup of Damian Lillard, Jrue Holiday, Kent Bazemore, Carmelo Anthony, and Hassan Whiteside. Looking on the flip side, the Pelicans would benefit immensely on the offensive end. I mean, they're currently 22nd in the league in terms of offensive rating with 106.8. McCollum would definitely remedy this with his 3-level scoring, his ball handling, and his pick and roll ability. He could also play as a much better spot-up shooter next to Lonzo and Ingram, much better than Holiday could. McCollum is shooting near 39% from the 3-point line with about 2.7 makes per game, while Holiday is shooting only 34.9% on about 2 makes per game. It's also worth noting that McCollum is locked in for the next 5 years, given that he just signed a contract extension over the summer, meaning that the Pelicans could definitely move him if they need to. Next up on the list is one of the contending teams in the Western Conference, and I'm talking about the Denver Nuggets. Surprisingly this season, while the Nuggets are known to be an offensive-heavy team led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, it's their defense that has been elite. They are second in the league in defensive rating with a score of 103.3. But if you look at the offensive end, you would think they would be at least top 10, right? You're wrong. They actually are 13th in the league with an offensive rating of 109.1. And if you look at their team, one of the glaring weak points is actually the shooting guard position, where Gary Harris currently plays. He's only averaging 12.2 points per game, which isn't bad by any means, but the efficiency is the main problem. He's only shooting 41.9% from the field and 34.5% from the 3-point line. Now imagine if you switch Gary Harris with Jrue Holiday. In this trade, Gary Harris, Juan Hernangomez, and the 2021 top 10 protected pick would be sent to the Pelicans in exchange for Jrue Holiday and a Pelicans 2020 second round pick. Getting Holiday gives Denver a much needed dimension in their offense. They finally have another guy other than Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic to create their own shots. And because of his playmaking ability, Holiday would become the main playmaker in Denver, and Murray could actually focus on what he does best, which is scoring the rock. And on top of this, Holiday would bolster Denver's already elite defense by giving them a much better option on the defensive end in terms of the opposing team's perimeter players. Imagine upgrading Gary Harris, a solid defender, to Jrue Holiday, an all-defensive defender. And you may be asking yourself, why would the Pelicans give up this much to just get a player like Gary Harris and Juan Hernangomez? I mean, Harris is a clear downgrade from Holiday, so why would they even take it? Well, the answer is that the Pelicans would finally be able to play Lonzo Ball at the point guard position. Currently, he's averaging the least minutes he's seen in his career, and that's not good for his development. Harris would also be a pretty good fit alongside Lonzo and Ingram, given that he doesn't really need the ball to be effective, and he could just become their spot-up shooter along with JJ Redick. And they also get Juan Hernangomez, who is definitely an upgrade over Kenrich Williams, who, in my opinion, has been one of the worst players in the NBA this season. And finally, for the last team that I'm going to talk about today, let's talk about who is currently the best team in the league, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now you might be asking to yourself, why should the Bucks change anything if their formula is working? I mean, I could see your point, but let me pitch you this idea. Imagine if the Bucks were to trade Eric Bledsoe, DJ Wilson, Dragan Bender, Sterling Brown, the Pacers 2020 first round pick, the Pacers 2021 second round pick, and the Pacers 2025 second round pick as well for Jrue Holiday. The Bucks would have a starting lineup of George Hill, Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez, an elite starting lineup. With the addition of Holiday, they have a great perimeter defense along with George Hill, bolstering their current number 1 defense in the league with a defensive rating of 101.4. But more importantly, they get another shot creator in crunch time alongside Middleton and Giannis. If you saw Eric Bledsoe's playoff performance last year, it was completely horrible. If the Bucks were to make this move, they would be completely nasty. But let's talk about the Pelicans. Bledsoe would be a solid placeholding guard until Lonzo develops. He could either be the starting 2 guard or he could be the backup point guard behind Lonzo, given that the Pelicans want to develop their young core. Bledsoe is also on a somewhat friendly contract with an average salary of $17.5 million per year. He would also serve as another shot creator along with Brandon Ingram. DJ Wilson would definitely be an upgrade over Kenrich Williams. Dragan Bender is still a somewhat compelling prospect, being just 22 years old, and Brown would be a very good spot-up shooter for the team, complementing their ball-dominant players. Along with this, more picks would be added along with their given lottery picks that they're going to get this year, and the picks that they're going to get from the AD trade. They're setting themselves up great for the long term. But with all that being said, just remember these are all my opinions on what I think would be fair trades for the Pelicans to make for Jrue Holiday. Let me know in the comments if you think that there's a better trade out there. Please like the video if you liked it, subscribe and hit the post notifications so you don't miss out when I upload a video. But with all that being said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day or night wherever you are.